expect to move that we send that memo and we can all decide together what should be included in it. Okay, Mr. Cassidy.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Before I make my comments, we all realize in this room how expensive it is to live here in Austin now, and it's getting more expensive every day. Our cadet pay, when we are out recruiting all over the United States for people to come here, you got to understand that we're recruiting in a very small pool now because people don't want to be in law enforcement due to various factors over the last several years. So we're really recruiting a tight pool. Now, when I talked to Bob Nix over at Fire, they have 2,000 or 3,000 people show up and turn in their applications. We're fighting for 300 or 400 people to turn in an application. And it usually takes about 10 people to hire one cadet. And their starting pay is $40,000 in the academy. And when you're trying to get people to move their families and pick up and move across the United States to come here to Austin, $40,000, quite frankly, is not cutting it. You know, the city's done a feasibility study compared to Arlington, Texas, Fort Worth, Dallas, and other places. Their cadets start out in the $50,000 to $60,000 range. So even though we have Austin, which is a great place to live, and everyone, the mayor will say, "Oh, this is a fantastic place to live. Everyone should want to come here." Well, it's if you can afford to come here. So, on the back end, we're one of the, if not the most highest paid in the state. I think we're treated fairly, but in that range when we're trying to recruit them in a small pool, that's $1.5 million that got left out so far out of the budget. It was in the presented budget, but it was taken out, I believe, by the city budget office, if I'm not mistaken. Someone can correct me. So that's an important issue to the association. They're not our members yet. We don't speak for them, but they will be a member, and they will also be contributing to our pension system at a later date. So getting good qualified people in here is important. Mike McDonald, one of our chiefs and city manager here for a long time, said we expect perfection out of you. And if we're going to pay you a high salary, we expect perfection. And when you're paying low basement pay like $40,000 a year, to me, you're not going to be getting the best candidates to move to Austin. The second thing is overtime. We've had numerous pay raises over the last 10 years, but we're not getting the money to pay overtime. So even though we're increasing officers' salaries, the department is not getting the money on the back end to pay for having to hire overtime officers, since we are working at a rate, and I think we're 118 people short now. So they're having to pay a lot of overtime out, but the department's not getting that money on the front end to pay for it. We're consistently under budget. Fire and EMS have been consistently over budget, and that's because they pay a lot in overtime because they're shorthanded. And, we've always tried to be responsible with our money. Chief Acevedo and Chief Manley have done a fantastic job at that, but it's coming at the expense of officers and working short. I just left a show up downtown where we're sending 4 people out on patrol today in downtown Austin. That's not acceptable. And if we have to pay the overtime, which they do, sometimes officers don't respond to the requests, but we need that money to be able to make sure the community is still safe. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Will one of you please...
Competitive in reference to drawing those good candidates here to Austin.
Thank you.
Question on cadet pay. So this proposal would then raise cadet pay from what level to what level?
We are still waiting on the study, but the amounts that we utilized was raising it from $40,000 to $50,000.
Yes. So I, in particular, believe that people should be paid a living wage, especially if we're asking them to risk their lives on behalf of us. And so I would support the cadet salary increase.